Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John never wants to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show.
It is the BJ Show for, I was going to say Wednesday, but it's not Wednesday. It's Thursday. I don't know why I came up with Wednesday. Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. This is A Block, which means we start the show off at the top of the hour, just a little bit after that. John, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning to you, Brett. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
John, I'm doing great. I will just take a brief 15, 20 seconds to say, everybody, please think some positive thoughts for my former co-host on the BS show, Shelley Barr. Shelley is not doing well lately, and we need positive energy directed her way, specifically out in Lake St. Louis. So direct your positive energy out to Lake St. Louis for Shelley Barr. John Combest, every single day of his life, he puts, well, not for entire life, but for the past 23 years of his life, puts together this incredible website called johncombest.com. Now, to give you an idea of how good John is, I'll give you a perfect example. This is the kind of thing that happens all the time. I will come up with what I think is an incredible scoop. Like, for example, just last week, I found out that Adam Schnelting has a tattoo on the bottom of his left toe, on his left foot, of President Reagan. And I said to John on the air, John, did you know that Adam Schnelting has a tattoo on the bottom of his left toe and his left foot, of Reagan? And John says, I had that 2 weeks ago on johncombest.com.
Because it was in Missouri Tattoo Times.
I can never scoop John. He's the. What was the Saturday Night Live skit where he's the scoopmeister. He's
the scoopmeister general, right. The man with the scoops.
Right.
That was the copy guy, Rob Schneider.
Right, exactly. God, what a great bit that was. Some of the old stuff at Saturday Night Live is, I mean, of course, you know how with the old stuff, boy, that was good. The new stuff is now so bad, but yet 10 years from now, the people go, that stuff 10 years ago was great.
Yes.
You know how that goes. Anyway, John starts off every day by putting this incredible list together. Sometimes as many as 50 plus items. I don't know how many today, John, rough estimate?
Oh, I don't know, a couple dozen.
But what we do is we bring this guy and we bring him back from the dead. What's your name again? Oh, hold it. I forgot to turn his pot up. We bring him back from the dead. What's your name again, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And we do this countdown thing.
Now on with the countdown.
And we start off with?
In third place.
We're going to start far away in the top three and then get closer to home. We'll start over on the East Coast in Washington, D.C., a story brought to us by Jason Rosenbaum of one of your favorite stations, St. Louis Public Radio. The headline from Rosenbaum: former Missouri GOP Chairman Ed Martin's U.S. Attorney nomination hits a snag. Brad, the snag that Mr. Rosenbaum speaks of is a guy named Adam Schiff. He is no fan of Donald Trump, and therefore he is no fan of Ed Martin. He has officially placed a hold on Martin's nomination. Now, that doesn't mean that Ed Martin won't become the permanent U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C., but it does mean that it's on hold for a little while, and it'll force people to continue talking about Ed Martin, continuing to dive into things that Ed Martin has said about the January 6th protest and a whole host of other issues. So Rosenbaum notes that Missouri's two U.S. senators, Josh Hawley and Eric Schmidt, as you might expect, support Ed Martin in that role. And it doesn't seem as though there's a significant chance that Ed Martin would be defeated, which is what I get from reading the story. But Rosenbaum notes that there are some roadblocks. A guy named Tom Tillis, he's from North Carolina, and he's expressed some reservations that Rosenbaum outlines in this story. So it looks like Ed Martin's nomination is slowing down a little bit, but could probably still be ramrodded through the U.S. Senate.
You know what Ed Martin needs to do? Ed Martin.
What does he need to do?
He needs to come out and say, "Hey, Adam Schiff, you're giving me grief. You're the guy that put up these fake impeachment articles, not once but twice. You lied about our president because of the fact that you said he was doing X, Y, and Z. You wanted to impeach him not once but twice. Dude, recuse yourself." How about that?
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. That sounds like something you'd hear on OAN or the right side of Fox News. I don't know. I think that, as Rosenbaum notes, if you're a Republican senator and you're kind of on the fence or you've privately expressed reservations, you're going to get a call from Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's going to lean on you, and you're probably going to go with Trump on this.
John, how come the 33 other people on the news staff of St. Louis Public Radio, a.k.a. KWMU, how can they live with themselves when Jason Rosenbaum is busting his butt with all these news, and you never hear any stories from any other reporter from those other 33 reporters from St. Louis Public Radio? How can that be, John?
Because, as we know from C Block yesterday, which was April 2nd, they're spending all their time answering media inquiries on the KDHX, Friends of St. Louis Public Radio, media purchase. They're spending all their time diligently answering Brad Hildebrand's inquiries.
Which means they're spending zero time. Okay, we ready for two?
We sure are.
And by the way, I have to tell you a funny story that happened to me yesterday. When I was out making sales calls, you might get a kick out of this, you may not. Remind me, maybe we'll do it in B Block, okay?
I will.
Okay.
Up a notch to number 2.
Another update on a piece of legislation for which Brad, surprisingly, has a sensible solution, but we'll go with the Missouri legislature's answer first. The headline today from St. Louis Public Radio's Sarah Kellogg: Missouri House passes cell phone restrictions in schools, now heads to the Senate. This is that piece of legislation that we talked about, which would say it would require school districts create a policy on cell phone use to be adopted in the 26 to 27 school year. So giving school districts quite a bit of time to come up with a cell phone policy that would ban the use of cell phones during what is considered regularly scheduled instructional activities and meal times. Now, people come out and say, but what about the kid that has apoplectic seizures or whatever? Of course, there are exceptions in here for kids with documented needs, health purposes, etc. It would also allow principals to designate special exceptions for time and for students and things like that. But in general, the legislature is going to require schools to ban cell phones during instructional times. And the curious thing to me, Brad, is that this bill passed 132 to 11. So think of all the Democrats and Republicans that both sides of the aisle approving this measure. Like, it's rare to see something only get 11 dissenting votes out of 163 members. So, Brad, you over the weekend slaved over a hot transmitter. And as you pointed out, we have a lot more listeners this week over the air than we've ever had before. They have not yet heard your plan, which is surprisingly sensible, for what cell phones should be used for in school. What is your idea for that, Brad?
Are you kidding me? You really like
I'm being dead serious. Now, it will never happen,
right,
but it's surprisingly, I shouldn't say surprisingly creative, but people haven't heard it before listening over the air, so tell them what your plan is.
Okay, my plan, and as crazy as it may sound, but it does make a lot of sense. If the kids are addicted to cell phones, give them what they want. You put a camera in each of the classrooms, which is not difficult anymore. I mean, you can buy like a webcam.
It's very simple.
Yeah, for practically nothing. And each teacher streams their entire classroom, but the students are required to sit there in the classroom and watch their teacher on their smartphone. So in other words, they have to have their smartphone in front of them. The teacher is literally, if you're in the front row, the teacher is 5 feet away from you, but you're watching her on your smartphone, and you have to watch her on your smartphone for the entire class. The idea being is that if you're using your smartphone and you're watching your teacher, you can't be using it for anything else, correct?
That's exactly right. Like, what else? You can't be playing Roblox or Minecraft if you're watching your teacher.
Or Fortnite or anything like that. Okay, but more importantly, just like our show, we do it live, but then it's archived. So if the kids go back and they have some questions, oh, Mrs. Smith said, let me think, what did she say about the inverse hypotenuse triangle? You can go back and look at it and go, okay, I get it now. I totally understand. Or if you're sick or whatever, or if you miss school because, whatever, it's there. And see, the crazy thing about it is we haven't talked about this. I don't know if we've ever talked about this before. Do you remember what they used to call, I don't know if they do anymore, they called the Al Gore tax? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't know this.
Al Gore, when he was the vice president under Clinton, put this thing through where, and the interesting part of this, I need to do some research on this because of the fact that I don't know how this is anymore. There's a tax on your landline phone. Back in the day when everybody had landlines.
Landlines.
There's a tax. John's laughing. There's a tax on your landline phone, your home phone, whatever you want to call it, that is essentially earmarked for educational internet usage.
Ooh, nice.
And this has been going on for a long time. Now, the problem is, I don't know if it's still in effect because of the fact that there aren't too many people who have landlines anymore, so that tax has got to be diminished. The school districts have buku bucks that they, for this kind of stuff. And I'll give, I don't want to do this now. Let's wait till the B block. But remind me to give my explanation of my problem with the Washington School District. And I know, John, you're going to say, Brad, who don't you have a problem with? But if I explain my situation about this, you will find, I think even you will find it somewhat interesting and sort of ridiculous in the respect that, once again, Brad is willing to write a check to a governmental entity, in this case, the Washington School District, and they won't take my money. But they'll be more than happy to raise your property taxes, but they won't take a business person's money. We'll talk about that.
I am glad that you brought up Franklin County, because Franklin County is the star of story number one.
And that is right now.
The number one.
Brad, I'm going to mention something that we've talked about in the last 6 weeks or so, and I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to make a logical leap. Now, Brad, you're known for making logical leaps. Let's be honest. So here's my question. What does Franklin County's new nominee for presiding commissioner, the guy that Governor Kehoe says should be the next presiding commissioner, have to do with a pair of overalls?
He used to be on the commission in Warren County?
That's a great geographic stereotype, Brad. I'm glad that only part of our news signal goes to Warren County now. No, that's not the correct answer, but you gave it the old SIU Carbondale and SIU Edwardsville stab. You gave it the old college try. The correct answer, Brad, is something that's near and dear to your heart, which is carrying an old grudge. Brad, have you ever carried a grudge?
Never.
Never in your life, have you? So you'll really appreciate this story. It's going to be hard for you to relate to, but maybe you can appreciate it. Governor Mike Kehoe appointed former Senator Dave Schatz to be the new presiding commissioner in Franklin County. Franklin County lost Tim Brinker. He went to Greater St. Louis Incorporated to do government relations for those folks. And Governor Kehoe said, we have an accomplished state senator, a man with a long record of public service, Dave Schatz, and I want him to be the next Franklin County presiding commissioner. Well, usually that stuff pretty much gets rubber stamped by the Senate. The Brad Hildebrands of the world would say it's just a backslapping club where everybody does favors for each other. Well, there's one guy who's not slapping any backs, and his name is Mike Moon. He's the state senator from Ash Grove, down in the southwest part of the state. We've talked about him before, Brad, and you might recall that he raised the hackles of some people back in 2022 because he came on the floor of the Senate wearing overalls. He wasn't wearing a coat and a tie. He wasn't even doing the generic suburban thing where you put on a pair of slacks and a blazer. No, he had overalls on. And Senator Dave Schatz was not happy about it. Schatz reprimanded Senator Moon for wearing overalls. He thought it was quite disrespectful. Schatz actually called it childish. Mike Moon's behavior. And then, as this piece in the Missouri Independent points out, we'll go back a little further. This piece is brought to us, by the way, by Annalise Hanshaw of the Missouri Independent. It seems like the beef between Schatz and Moon started way back in 2018. Schatz had the idea of putting the gas tax on the ballot. And Mike Moon is generally a stickler. I shouldn't say generally. Mike Moon is a stickler for making sure that bills only stick to one topic. That's the whole point. Bills shouldn't have 1,000 different things in them not germane to the bill. So Mike Moon objected to the gas tax provision being added to a larger bill. And that seemed to cause the first schism, so to speak, between Dave Schatz and Mike Moon. So years later, 7 years later, we have a beef continuing. Mike Moon filibustered last night. I probably should have started with the action here, Brad. A Republican state senator, Mike Moon, filibustered through the night, or at least through the early morning, to block the appointment of Dave Schatz. Now, all the other senators, all the other Republican and Democrat senators didn't have a problem with Dave Schatz, but Mike Moon staged a one-person filibuster, and he finally gave up a little after 1 a.m., so he threw in the towel, and Dave Schatz will now become the presiding commissioner of Franklin County. So, Brad, we have a years-long grudge, overalls, a Kehoe appointment, and a lot of simmering bad blood that apparently has been carried, at least on one side, for, 7 years now?
You know, he needed to call Cory Booker and bring him in to give him some advice about doing a 25-hour filibuster. That's what he needed to do.
Oh, yeah. And, it would have probably been a little bit different if Moon had, one or two folks that he could rely on to carry the weight here. But it just goes to show, Brad, the personal relationships between people when people have acrimony and bad blood. It seems like nothing was ever sorted out between Schatz and Moon.
Okay, Dave Schatz, there's no, in the Franklin County charter, whatever, there's no procedure for special election?
No, at this point, so there's something, I can't quote the law exactly as it stands, but because Tim Brinker voluntarily left, then the appointment goes to the governor. It would be the same as if, the Stoddard County coroner one day decided to throw in the towel. Then the governor would appoint the coroner of Stoddard County.
So this is till the end of his term, the end of Tim Brinker's term. Then that's what this is.
I believe it would be until the next election. So I believe it would be in 2026. Yeah,
2026. Okay.
I could be wrong about that, and folks who are listening, if I'm wrong about that, please let me know.
I always find it fascinating that people who bust their butt. And Tim Brinker did, and Tim Brinker is a very good campaigner. I've seen him in action. Bust their butt, spend lots of money, have lots of friends of theirs and supporters of theirs spend their money, and then he abandoned ship. Why was the St. Louis deal such a better deal than the Franklin County commissioner?
I would presume that, first of all, maybe Tim Brinker felt that he did all he needed to do as presiding commissioner, that his mission was accomplished. We had a governor here in Missouri, Matt Blunt, who served a one term and said, yeah, pretty much did all the big stuff I wanted to do. I'm done. I would also think, Brad, and this is, there's no way that you're not going to take this radically personally, but I would say some people like the idea of making money, and some people might like the idea of making, a solid living. And I think Tim Brinker probably looked at what Greater St. Louis Inc. would pay him, and then maybe what he could get on some outside consulting deals. And he compares that to serving another year, essentially losing money as Franklin County presiding commissioner, and thinks, hey, I'm in the prime earning years of my life. And, I'd rather do the sign lithograph tour than do the starving artist thing. You know what I'm saying? So not everybody wants to be a starving artist their whole life.
So what you're saying is he's not being Trump?
In that what?
Well,
because Trump could make a lot more money.
Yeah, Trump could make
for sure,
hell of a lot more money.
Sure.
Not
but,
being the
with
president.
Trump, there's a lot of other things that go into that. Probably a little bit of ego too. But yeah, I would just say that Tim Brinker probably, he accomplished a lot for Franklin County, and I think he would also say that there's probably something noble about thinking, hey, I'm going to help the region by adding a little bit of common sense to what those urbanites are doing down at Greater St. Louis Incorporated.
John, you want me to give you the real answer? Because I already have
Oh,
the
I
real
want to hear
answer.
it.
The real answer was that when Tim Brinker campaigned for the Franklin County Commission, he essentially said, if you elect me, I will bring big lots to Washington, Missouri.
And he didn't mean large fields. He meant the store.
Yeah, the store, big lots. And he got elected, bango, big lots comes into Washmo. Now, big lots is gone. So people are going, Tim, you told us you were going to bring in big lots, and you did, but now it's gone. So get the hell out of Franklin County. So okay, I get the
You
message.
know, like you bring up a great point, Brad. And hell hath no fury like voters that can't go to big lots and get misshapen, miscut socks at a discount.
I say
If you want cotton poly blend misshapen socks, Big Lots is your store.
I think I gave this anecdote once before when Dick Stratman was running for the mayor of Washington before he hated me and his wife came after me, but that's a whole other story. That is a true story. His wife legally came after me, which is sort of interesting. FCC legally came after me. He used to come into the station all the time with Brian Nieves, and we used to have this deal where the old mouth, we said, the front doors is open. And literally people would walk in off the street and go in and sit down with Brian Nieves and talk on the air, talking about a community radio station, okay? One morning when Dick Stratman, at that time he was running for re-election for mayor, was sitting in the studio with Brian Nieves, and Brian said to him, hey, Dick, you're out knocking doors trying to get re-elected. What's the number one issue that you hear from the constituents? What's the number one question you get? And you know what the number one question from the constituents in Washington was?
What was it?
When's Big Lots opening?
Oh, nice.
That was
By the way, this is the most Dick Stratman has been mentioned on any radio station ever since 2006.
No, not true, because of the fact that he used to be on KLPW all the time, and they used to do the Dick Stratman, they used to bow and kneel, and Dick Stratman, oh, Dick Stratman, oh, Dick Stratman. They would say it 3 times in 10 seconds. So you're wrong in that, John. I hate to tell you that. Okay,